Hello again. Continuing with our study of variables, we began with a problem where we had some duplicate code and thought there must be a better way. And in that particular problem, which was trying to determine if the square in front of the robot was dark, it occurred to us that a better way would be, what if we could remember whether or not the square in front was dark? Then, we move forward, we test if the robot's on dark, we remember the answer. Then we back up, and only then do we return that answer that we remembered. And that makes our program look a little cleaner. And in particular, we used a variable there. So whenever we want to remember something, when we want our program to remember something, that's the key that tells us we should use a variable. That's what a variable does for us in computer programming. A variable is a name for a place in the computer's memory where the computer remembers a particular value. And it's perhaps called a variable because we're allowed to change what value it remembers. And the way we change what value is in a variable is we use an assignment statement, and that's our fifth kind of statement now. And an assignment statement looks like this. We have a variable name, an equal sign, and an expression. For example, we wrote dark equals robot on dark. Robot on dark is an expression that we evaluate to get a true or false value, and that true or false value then gets stored in a memory place with the name dark, which we can then retrieve later by using dark itself like an expression. Right here, dark is an expression that we evaluate to get whatever true or false was stored, and then we return that value. Now, it turns out if you read it as dark equals robot on dark, then you'll find yourself falling prey to a certain kind of confusion with assignment statements. Actually, it turns out assignment statements are probably one of the most misunderstood and critical statements in Java, or in most programming languages. And here's what you want to think. Whenever you see something like dark equals robot on dark, what you actually want to think to yourself, the way you want to say that line out loud, is that dark gets the value of robot on dark. In other words, in general, the variable gets the value of the expression. In fact, that seems nice. Let's write that too. The variable gets the value of the expression. And so the key is you want to think gets the value of whenever you see one of these equal signs. You don't want to think equals, because we don't want to think of it as we're setting the variable equal to something. This isn't equals for math class. It's not even close to equals for math class. It's not a symmetrical operation. It doesn't test if two things are equivalent. It assigns a value on the right to the variable on the left. In fact, in another world, instead of it being an equal sign, it would have been an arrow pointing to the left, because that would have clearly indicated that a value on the right-hand side is being stored in a name on the left-hand side. Okay, so remember this phrase, gets the value of, wherever you see an equal sign. So back to our program. Dark gets the value of robot on dark, then we back up, then we return dark, and that seemed like a great thing, and then we hit F5 to compile, and we discovered this error message you see at the bottom of the screen. It says that Java cannot find a symbol, and a symbol is basically a word in Java, cannot find the symbol, and the symbol it can't find is a variable called dark. And we could get upset about that and say, what do you mean you can't find dark? It's right here. Let's take a look at what that means. What that really means, and of course the error message doesn't really tell you it, is that in order to use a variable, we can't just start using it in Java. In some languages we could. In Python, we could simply find the value of something, store it in a variable, and everything's good. Make up whatever variable name we like. But in Java, we can't just make up a variable name until we tell Java, we declare to Java that we really did intend to use a variable. So, we must declare a variable before we can assign to it. How do we declare a variable? So if assignment statement was our fifth kind of statement, declaration statement is our sixth kind. So a declaration statement looks like this. We have something, a space, something else, and a semicolon. What are those somethings? The first thing is a type, and the second thing is a variable name. So, for example, what happened to all my text? There it is. For example, in the program that we're about to write, in fact, let's do that now. We need a type and a variable, and it has to occur, the rule is it must be before we assign to it. So we've assigned to dark in this line, so if we're writing something before that, it means it should either be immediately above, or, perhaps at the very beginning of the method. And either place is fine. We can put it wherever we like. Some people like declaring all their variables at the beginning of a method. I think most people prefer to just declare the variables as you need them, just in time, so I'm going to do that. So the variable is called dark. That goes on the right side. On the left, I'm supposed to write the type of the variable. And actually, we only know one type so far, and that type is Boolean. A value can be of type Boolean, right? Could be a true or a false. So dark is going to store a true or a false. So I write Boolean dark, and now I can start using that variable dark by assigning to it. Alright, well let's see if that actually works now. Have we satisfied the almighty Java compiler? Hitting F5, compilation completed. It's happy. That's all we need to do. Tell it it's no accident we're using this variable dark to store a Boolean value, because we really did intend to do that. So, in fact, let's make a note about this whole business of declaration statement. Just tells the compiler we intend to use a variable of that name to store a value of that type. Right? That's all. It doesn't really do anything. It just appeases the compiler. So we don't want to get hung up. We don't want to think that this sets the value of dark to be false or anything like that. It just simply says dark is a variable I intend to use, and it will store a true or false value. And we have to do that in Java. So let's go back to loading up my picture of the robot in the hallway, and let's ask it if the front is dark. Does it work? True, the front is dark. And it did that this time by using this dark variable and remembering whether the robot was on dark. And sure enough, if we were to be in the next square where the front is not dark, and we run this method, we should get back false. And we do. So that's a good thing. Okay. So what did we just accomplish? Well, we learned about declaring, and we learned about assigning. And I think maybe the next thing we might do is give you some sort of larger, bigger picture about the life cycle of a variable. Actually, maybe we'll play with variables for a moment. I want to show you some things with variables. Let's just start playing. So, do I still have my robot in the world? I do. So I can declare a variable, I'll call it x. And I can store whatever I want in x. I could store true, and at this point the value of x is true. I'm going to show you that by just, remember, Dr. Java's interactions pane lets me not only write out statements, but also expressions like front is dark or x. And if I write it as an expression, it'll tell me the value. So the value of x is true now. If I say x gets the value of, let's see, false, then the value of x is false. And we could say x gets the value of, you're going to notice I keep saying that, gets the value of, x gets the value of robot on dark. We get, and now x is storing true because the robot is indeed on a dark square. Here's a fun one. X gets the value of not x. Now if this were math class, your teacher would blow up right about now and say, what do you mean x equals not x equals x equals not x? It just doesn't make any sense, right? But in computing, equals doesn't mean anything about testing for equality or setting something equal or whatever. It simply means x, this name, gets the value of not x. So the first thing that Java does is it finds the value of the expression on the right hand side. And the value of not x, let's see, what is the value of not x? X is true, so not x had better be false, and it is. So if we say x equals not x, all we're really saying is x gets the value of not x is true, so not x is false, so x gets the value false, and from then on x is false. So that's what it looks like to use a variable. And of course, we can have more than one variable, like we could have y. And I could say y gets the value of x, and since x stored a false, y now stores false. What if we, let's take a look at, I think this would be a good point to switch to the next video. So in the next video, what I want to do is take a look at the life cycle of a variable, and maybe a couple other small things, and we'll eventually head toward not just storing true or false values in variables, but what other types of values can we store in a variable? right? And it's going to turn out one of the things we really want to be able to store in a variable is a numeric value. So we'll work our way toward that, and I'll see you in the next video.